Okay. Hello, everyone. We are here for the workshop before the board meeting, and we are just waiting on Lori.
Kind of kick us off there.
Okay.
So in front of you, you've got a copy of the budget. We did add the percentages as requested by Trustee Gregory. Um, that shows us the difference from the 2025 budget to the 2026 budget. In addition to notes on the right side there, that kind of provides just a little more information on some of these items here. So I don't think the percentages were on there. The percentages on there because you
The one from 25/6 is on there, but I was requesting just a comparison of the 25 end of the year estimate versus the budget, so we can kind of see, where we.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And I'd like to understand, if we didn't hit our budget, why?
Right. Okay. And I can talk through that. Um, if any of those line items you want to talk about specifically. Yeah, I just didn't know if it's okay. If we can talk about it as it comes up. I just didn't know if you had a specific one that you're talking about. Um, uh, um, yeah, I don't think we want to go through line by line. We did update the year-end estimate to be more reflective of what we're anticipating. Um, for the restricted revenue fund. For line item 12-40-610,
Page numbers, please.
page 8.
Budget committee met.
No, they're going to meet after this workshop, so you have a little more finalized budget. Um, hey, Lori, we are looking at the transit O&M costs and the restricted revenue fund for 2020.
Okay.
She's not 5, the year-end estimate versus the budgeted amount. You had said that was what Craig from the finance department at Winter Park had sent you as far as
The next year balance, the amount for next year for 2026,
Yep, that came from Craig.
that came from Craig.
Craig is the finance director at the town of Winter Park. He sends us what we need to be budgeting for transit, police. I don't know if there's anything else there. But I'm not sure why there's a difference there. That could just be the only typo that was potential. I don't know if we've gotten any other information from the town of Winter Park on lower transit costs, but
Usually when they come in a little bit under, it's because they were not fully staffed.
okay.
That's usually where we run into wow, how did we come in under it's because they didn't manage to have every bus driver on their wish list.
Got it. So we'll continue to monitor that. Maybe we could do it closer to that 1.28 in the 2025 budget, or just due to driver shortages, maybe we are looking at a lower number. So that's the only one that I saw that was that I just want to highlight is we'll keep an eye on the invoices as they come in based on services rendered, but could fluctuate. And it's very similar to the other big one in the general fund is the police IGA. I'll find it for you here real quick. Page 2. 10-41-862. That one typically comes in 200,000 to 300,000 under budget. And that's just like Lori said, that's directly tied to personnel issues. They've I don't think they've ever been fully staffed for a full budget year. So those are typical to be low.
Fine.
Um, Lori, Paul, were you guys able to connect about what projects we do have folded into the budget for next year? And I know some of them, and I'll pull up my notes here on my computer.
No, I was on a site walk for Clayton Court.
Yeah, you guys have mentioned the Quell water line project's going to take place next year for water.
No, the only thing that would take place for water next year would be a design for the furry critters looping. So looping everything between Winter Park Ranch and the furry critters, and then potentially a phase 1 project. So phasing that project. That's the water project. And then on the sewer side, we just have continued sewer grouting for I&I, which would be here at the rest of Old Town that we haven't finished so far. So it would be everything to the north of Eisenhower would then get the chemical grouting. Those are the two big projects. And then the large project for the general fund is obviously Clayton Court Streetscape, which we had a pre-bid meeting on today. Walked site, we had 4 contractors show up interested in the project. So those are the big projects we have in the budget. And then potentially a smaller project is the doing something along the Fraser River at Lions Pond. So kind of between the bike park and the river, kind of finding some amenity there. We moved the project from Clayton Court, since that's not actively built, over to where we have an active site. So those are the kind of the projects that we have. Everything else should be finished. And then there's Michael has a list of projects that, if the board wanted to see something, but it's not actually something we have planned to do.
Okay. Some specific line items I just wanted to highlight too. And Lori, I'll hand it to you here in a second as far as what you want to highlight. Discussion of the child care subsidy, which is on page 2. 10-41-866. We have that budgeted for 100. That can be any number you guys want. It could be 0. We're obviously going to have a workshop with grandkids as far as what the requirements are looking like for overall childcare and for the St. Louis Landing facility itself. We're not going to be subsidizing the St. Louis Landing childcare facility until 2027. So for next year, I'm open to whatever you guys want to do there. We can wait till we have a workshop with grandkids. We can have just a placeholder in here. As far as regional initiatives go, I need to get an update from the county for what they're looking at, but I know the county has done 50,000 a year for a while. Winter Park is budgeting 100 to 150. I don't think they finalized that number yet. But again, like we're building a facility. I don't want to put any pressure on any of you guys for what you guys want to put that number. If you want to wait till after we have a workshop with those guys, it's fine. But just letting you know that could be available through a donor advised fund, specific with limitations to childcare providers. Grant County, for example, they had a donor advised fund for $300,000 that was available for childcare in addition to anything else that's available through that ballot initiative that was passed. So that can be transit, it can be marketing initiatives, events, housing, and childcare, obviously. And we heard they got 12 different applications from 12 different entities. So Anyway, ours could be, if we want to do a donor advised fund specifically for childcare, you could.
Is the workshop on childcare specific or exclusive to just Fraser, or is this going to be a joint with Mineral Park and?
It's specific, it's just, they're just coming to Fraser. We may have somebody attend from Winter Park as well, or the county. I've invited, I've made them aware of it. But it's 20 minutes, so we just discussed 15, 20 minutes from Epic to just kind of give us an update of where they're at with their regional study. Followed by 10 minutes of questions and then 20 minutes talking specific financials and financial scenarios for St. Louis Landing childcare facility. That's the conversation. Do I have that right, Sarah? Okay. So we'll be having a conversation for what they're going to be looking for regionally as well as specific to St. Louis Landing.
I would think that's important to cost allocating.
And I think that, once St. Louis Landing comes online and that childcare facility comes online, that can directly pull from this line item. It can be wherever you guys want to. We could do it in-house. We don't need to go through the grant foundation. We can evaluate applications, do an invite period. Anyway, just saying there's flexibility there so that we can look at showing support towards that initiative. But once we have our own facility come online, that I would say takes precedence. And then if there's anything beyond what you guys want to allocate, that could go towards a grant cycle. Does that make sense? So I don't know if there's any strong feelings about that number. It's up to you
I
guys.
think it's fine as a placeholder for now.
Yeah. Lori, is there anything in there that you want to highlight?
No, I had included all the notes and comments on the side for everyone to review while they were looking at the budget. And I added the percent change from 2025. I thought that'd be helpful for people to see where we're going up and down. And then just waiting to see what questions jump out from the board. Revenues, sales tax is going to be I'm trying to stay a little on the conservative side. We've got a lot of economic uncertainty going on at the moment, and I'm not sure if we're going to benefit from the fact that Winter Park is, we're still close enough to Denver and people are going to want to ski and want to do things even this winter, because that's the same thing that happened this summer. We had a pretty decent summer, but it's hard to tell how much people are going to be tightening down their budgets for the coming next quarter and into 2026. So I stayed a little conservative on the sales tax. Everything is pretty well within maybe about a 3% increase over last year. And that's still, I'm kind of going maybe optimistic. Sales tax, I thought we were going to do pretty good because in prior years we've always come out a little bit higher, but I'm still trying to be kind of optimistic, hopeful. And the other fees are going to stay pretty well. Nothing jumps out there. The rental income, that's the employees, that's the offset. We have the rental agreement for the employee housing that we provide for a couple of employees. So we pay the landlord, but the employees reimburse us.
Pass through.
Yeah. So just so you know, because that was like, wow, oh yeah, that's because it's been debatable on to where it's being carried, and I decided rental income was the easiest, but we do have the offset that the employees pay the town.
Yeah, and just a little clarification on that too. We had a couple of vital, and I would say that all of our staff is vital, but when you have people that have years and years and years of experience in these fields, and they're struggling trying to renew an annual lease. And we're able to just provide the backing for like a 2-year lease, especially until we get phase one up and running. It just allows for, those employees are paying the full rent and it's just passed through. But having a 2-year lease with the town, it just provides some assurance to that property owner and it makes things a little more advantageous for the employee and it keeps them here versus we were going to lose these 2 employees.
Plus, the good news on that too is the one landlord did not increase his rental this year. He stayed the same as the prior year. Or, I mean, he's keeping it level with this year. He's not going to increase. So, that was pretty beneficial for us and for the employee.
So can you explain? So we have year-end estimate of $50,000, budgeted for $10,000, and then for next year draft 63,256. I don't understand those numbers.
That's just me cleaning up the fact that I wasn't really sure how and best where to keep this because we do receive the income from the employee, but then our expenditure is there's expense going out to pay for it. So I just wanted to show a clearer picture of what we actually are bringing in, and that is for the 2 places. Plus, some is added for the church rentals have been very popular, and I'm assuming that after we get the renovations done, there might be some extra in there. So I think there's about, let's see.
Where's the expense for that?
That's
I see the revenue, but I don't see the expense.
It is down in the employee housing. That's where we pay it out of, but it's just a net zero.
Where is that now?
1045, 672. But seeing as how we're received, well, I can put the 63,000 in there, but that, it just zeroes out.
Yeah, let's put that in there,
We should
Lori.
put that in.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you have
Yeah.
$4,500.
It's like we're making 60s.
Yeah, I assure you, we're not providing any free rents, but
No,
we'll
no,
have that number reflected in there.
And master leases is kind of the model that things are moving to for security for all businesses. I think Safeway is doing it. and-
I mean, really, if you don't own the stock, it's
Oh, wait,
a good option.
Those numbers don't quite match up, do they? Rental income of 50,000 and you're showing employee housing 4,500.
Was missing a zero, Lori?
I think so. Something could be. It popped up somewhere else because we pay some. My mind just went blank, sorry.
We'll get that adjusted.
I'll just highlight that and I'll get it straight.
What's a miscellaneous expense? 1045, 690.
Six donation. Okay. All right, I'll get that straightened out.
Do you know what that is?
What's that?
The miscellaneous expense right below there. 1045, 690.
$10.45.
$34,000.
That miscellaneous expense is just anything that we can't categorize. There are odd payments here and there that go out and not regular tracked expenses. So I'll get you a list on that.
We'll create a note on that as well.
I'm curious, is it is that miscellaneous expense just for the property management of those town-owned properties, or is it miscellaneous in general?
We don't have any property management with our employees for that stuff.
That could be some of it.
I'm just saying, like, if whatever, one of those units needed a new dishwasher, like, would it go into there?
It should be on the land. I think it's on the landlord, based on where the locations are at. I don't believe any of our employees have a triple net lease. It's just a straightforward lease. We'll get an answer to that and add that as a note too, in here.
Community housing, what's that? 1036,600.
That was the, Ken, which one?
1036,600. The bottom of page 1.
Oh, what we're putting in there. 1036. Those are the, it's a portion of the short-term rental, the, fees that are paid and that are paid into the community housing. Because I take, the bedroom fees are the ones that are paid into, the Fraser Housing Authority now. But those are the rental fees that are paid in.
The registration fees.
Yes,
So it's with each STR, we have $150 registration fee. So it's community housing, but it offsets the costs for the administration of that program as well as the software used for that.
Stripe.
Yeah, Stripe and Wendy, what's the name of the software that we use for our STRs? Rentalscape.
So maybe you should call it something else. Community housing sounds like it's
STR admin.
yeah, something else other than, because we don't have any community housing, right?
No. Unless you count the gazebo.
Where's the marijuana tax in here?
That's under sales tax.
Sales tax.
It's just it's one of the first line items in the revenue.
Well, hold on. It is,
Because the cigarette tax seems kind of low. Could you break that out separately? Because isn't that a separate line item?
wait a minute. It had to
Well,
be restricted.
how many do we have in town? One,
Two.
two.
We only have 2.
I think that's part of the issue, Lewis, is if you can't show dilution in a line item from who you're receiving it from, it's specifically calling out between these 2 shops that are generating this much revenue.
Yeah, it can't be on a separate line item.
There's a state law about reporting what revenues a business received. And if you reverse calculate the sales tax revenue, you can see what the revenues are being between the 2 shops. I think there's
I sign an MOU with the state of Colorado that I do not, I don't tell you specifically how much sales tax Safeway brings in because there's only one. And if there's less than 3, I can't really give you an aggregate amount because 2 is too few according to the state. Because then competitors can try and, I don't know how they do it exactly, but they can figure out what each one is making, on an average, and then they'll know how to price out and become a new competitor and beat them at the game.
Are
So how many,
those
I would-
towns trending up or down, or?
Unfortunately, I did just run a comparison of what they made last year to this year. they are trending down, and I think it's because of the competition of the shops that opened in Winter Park.
is-
I think they're feeling a hit there.
When did Gotti close?
Couple years ago, right?
Yeah,
2023, yeah.
Okay.
yeah, because I think there was a little uptick when Igati actually
Yeah.
stopped selling down there,
Opened down in Winter Park.
that everybody
Agati's
stopped
still
going to
opening.
Tabernash.
Ian Granby.
Right.
Yeah, that was
yeah.
their grow house.
I'm just talking about the one in Tabernacle.
Yeah.
No, the
proximity.
one in Tabernash
Yeah.
was a big sale point
Yeah.
too.
Mhm.
And I think when they closed that, our shops went up a little bit because I did see a higher uptick. But then over the holidays and spring break and everything, that's when they see their biggest revenues. But this year they're not seeing that because I think the competition is getting into them because there was one of the shops asked Antoinette and I said I can give them an average compared to last year and they're down. Both shops are.
People are still smoking cigarettes.
They're still smoking, but they're buying it and now they've got some competition. So I don't know what they're going to need to do to adjust for that because if you're in Winter Park, obviously they're going to buy it wherever it's closer or on the way to the ski area.
Yeah, it's like a liquor store now.
Yeah.
Whoever's closest. So are those tax dollars just kind of funneled through the town sales tax then?
Yep.
Okay.
It's in,
You've got 4% and 1% of that isn't that allocated to transit?
no,
Yes,
the
that's in the
restricted
restricted
revenue.
fund.
Yeah.
So I mean, does it make sense to have another line item so you could track what?
Well, it needs to go under restricted.
No,
revenue.
it's definitely restricted revenue.
Yeah.
When we get down there, you'll see restricted revenue, 1% sales tax. And that's where it has to be kept.
And I'd like to highlight that again with the transit costs, because that would be a part of our conversation later today. And if you go to page 8, that top line, 12-40-610, transportation O&M, you'll see the 2026 draft budget is 1.489 million. Everyone see that?
Mhm.
We'll be discussing that today. As you look at the revenues on page 7 for the restricted revenue fund, 12-31-100, you'll see that our expected revenues conservatively, and it's not even that conservative, is 1.2 million, and interest income expected to be 52,000, which would be a little bit less than what we've experienced before, just temporarily with the bridge loan, because we'll be losing interest income on that bridge loan. So our total revenues budgeted is 1.25 million, right? If you look at the 2024 audited actuals, even if we expect the same amount, 1.355. So let's just say 1.25 to 1.35 is what we can maybe expect for revenues. Looking back at that expenditure for the transit, the 1.489, it's still about $200,000 less than what we're budgeting for. And that'll be part of the discussion today. We do have a healthy unassigned fund balance that has rolled forward and snowballed over the years, largely because of a 2020, a significant operating grant that Winter Park procured that applied to all the transit here in the valley. And the cost of the transit service was like $480,000 to $500,000, but our actual expenditures was like $140,000 because of this grant. So that allows us to have a chunk of cash that kind of snowballed a little bit over time. Because we have that unassigned fund balance, the discussion will be tonight is just trying to get some highlighting the issue, but just having a conversation as far as how the board feels about appropriating funds to cover that payment for transit services, which is above our new revenues that's projected for this restricted revenue. So just something to think about. My recommendation would be to maintain that, but when we look at the contract with transit is from July to June. So between January and March and April, we can look at following whatever guidance you provide tonight as far as do you want to bring the cost within our allocated revenues and look at where we can cut things to get to that point. anyway, just want to highlight that issue because that'll be discussed later.
I had some questions and maybe the appropriate time is later. Is there a correlation to the cost of food and Safeway? I mean, it seems like that's going up 20% a year. You
Right.
know, and we're, is that incorporated into our estimates or?
I mean, it's sales tax.
Sales
If a
tax
banana goes
is-
up,
is
50%,
10%
you
of
generate that much more sales tax.
Exactly.
So I mean, what you're
It's
seeing
restricted
is
funds, so-
the 1% was intended to grow as we grow. But as we've highlighted in the budget message for the last several years and our last couple of board retreats, we've talked about this issue, how our revenues are failing to keep track with the growing expenditures with transit.
Yeah, and that's kind of where those questions, I'm like, well, inflation or,
Yeah.
it's greater than CPI or whatever.
Right.
But it seems like that should be, in the last 5 years, the budget should have doubled, according to that,
Apparently, transit costs are growing more rapidly. From 2024 to 2025, it was about a 20% increase. And then from 2025 to 2026, we're showing a 16% increase. So over 2025 and 2026, a 36% increase on costs. It's significant. So just want to prepare you guys a little
You're
bit
not getting fat.
for that conversation. Again, the restricted revenue fund is to be utilized for transit trails, trail maintenance. Which we've been having a floating project that we've been trying to do that's currently estimated about 650,000, Paul, for paving, repaving the Fraser Winter Park Trail, that paved trail in front of along the highway.
So I would say that the estimate in January of this year was 650. So it's probably a little bit more, but that would be to rebuild the trail completely. So we would, similar to the method we used on John's Drive when it was bad. So we would mill and pulverize the existing asphalt, use that as the base, and then pave it with a new top. It has a 15 to 20-year lifespan, but it is expensive. But it would go from Winter Park to basically, what is it, Wendy's.
So we have trail costs that
Yeah. And
can use some love, use some money,
that
use some fun.
percentage not strictly for just the bus system.
Right,
Correct.
and it's also available for capital projects. So that's what the ballot was approved. It was for transit trails and capital projects. Right now,
It's getting.
110% of that is going to transit.
Mhm.
So now we have some unassigned fund balance that we're going to be using, right? That 515 there, which is great. But I mean, based on this difference in costs, if you appropriate that for next year and then you appropriate for 2027, you're going to start dipping into the red a little bit. And then 2028 is going to be $300,000 in the red. And you're pulling that 300,000 from your general fund. So sustainable revenues for a sustainable service, I think is just the conversation tonight.
So they talked about, are they getting rid of, eliminating first student, isn't that who runs it?
First transit,
Oh.
they're now called TransDev. We keep trying to push them to adopt their own, to bring it in-house instead of contracting out. They have concerns about maintenance, but those things I think can be balanced for. So it's a good thing to continue to push, in my opinion, but Sarah Ott, the interim Winter Park Town Manager, Michael Cook, the previous transit manager, and he's still involved. And Charles McCarthy, who's the current transit manager for Winter Park. They'll be here tonight and do a presentation. So good time for questions.
Well, I'm wondering if we can get a more realistic estimate, because if you look at the end of the year estimate versus budget for next year, it's up 50%.
It's assuming 100% staffing and utilization. If they don't have staffing, then you're not running those buses, and you're not expending that fuel, and you're not expending the expense of that mileage.
Right. No, I understand, but it's pretty far off.
Yeah, and it's the same deal for the police.
And it would, and 24 is about the same as 25 as we're estimating. And then now you're gonna go up 50% in 1 year.
Well, that's because of the new budget that we're getting from TransDev.
Yeah.
They're saying this is what it's going to cost.
So from the IGA for transit, it's the budget has to be the amount has to be allocated in the budget by the town board. So if you approve the 1489, we'll utilize the unassigned fund balance, we'll get it paid. If, for example, for this year's budget, if you want to say we're only going to do 1.2 this year and we're going to keep our unassigned fund balance, that's puts Winter Park, they have to deal with that and they have to figure out either to bridge that cost or to cut costs through reduced services. So again, my recommendation would be just to let us work on that this spring and see what areas we can really cut from. They already cut from the Emerald line from going from 30, 60-minute service where you have 30-minute service on the weekends and holiday seasons and Christmas timeframe, and then 60 outside of that, so 1 hour service, to just 1 hour service. And that saves us $130,000. So otherwise, you're going to be seeing that number plus 130,000, and that eats up our unassigned fund balance pretty quick. So we went ahead and made that cut, which we can change that decision if you guys want to, but that's my recommendation is to maintain that cut. Because we're going to be doing more cuts, depending on what you guys want to do tonight. But,
Question on page 3. 1041, 872. Sustainability.
yes.
What is that? It's going up 129%.
Yep. So a chunk of that is for, it was a 5-year cloud plan with our EV charging station, Sarah.
We did pay for a cloud plan. We would pay that this year though.
Okay, that came out of this year's budget.
Yeah.
So we're way over budget this year, and then next year it's going up.
Can that cost?
For a while, we didn't have a warranty and we had gone back to having a warranty because those power modules regularly go out. And it cost 10 to 12,000 each time they do. So it was determined that paying for the warranty should help. We just had another one go out and it was covered under the warranty deal with the spot. There are pieces like the cable on the charger broke, and that was $6,000. Still would be covered under warranty.
I highly recommend that we somehow offload the maintenance and management of these EV charging stations.
Sounds like it.
I thought there were some state grants that covered.
We did,
increasing
we,
charge-
We applied for some and have not gotten it. There's a lot of money out there, or there, at least there has been a lot of money out there. I think the state still has some. I think that federal money is.
we
likely
did
gone.
get some grant for the one by the foundry. I think we got a grant for the one next to Lions Ponds.
Like to put them in initially.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know we got one by the foundry. I can double check. But anyway,
Okay.
so Sarah, with that 36,000, you think that's still needed for 2026?
If that line item is meant to be specific to the chargers, probably not.
Maybe it could
because
cut
we
back down
shouldn't
to
have that.
15 or 16?
Yeah, let me look at what we've spent on stuff, but it likely could go down.
Okay, can you look at that and see
Yep.
what number we want to adjust that to?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any other grants or does industry help fund some of that, like Tesla or some of the other.
There's third-party providers, so that's something as we expand EV infrastructure, that would make sense too. A lot of people do have third parties come in and put them in and operate them, and they get any profit, but they also take care of all the maintenance and.
Becky, there was a question about miscellaneous revenue. Do you know what that expense would, or miscellaneous expenses? Do you know what would be attributed to miscellaneous expenses?
1045, 690.
I'm sorry, say that again?
We, actually, what we'd need is to look into Cassell.
145, 690 miscellaneous expenses. Is that related to property management or is that just general?
That's just general. A lot of that stuff comes through for some of Sarah Wick's stuff for events and whatnot. They've been posted that way.
Can you go run to Cassell and
We'll take a look at Cassell, and if it is event related, that needs to be in the event
That
line
needs to
item.
be moved out of it.
So we'll bring that up.
We'll audit that.
Do you guys want to look at the debt service fund real quick?
Sure.
It's page 12. Lori, can you walk us through the debt service fund?
Okay, yeah, starting at the revenue portion, the bond proceeds. I put the note in there, so that everybody could help follow along. That the bond is $33,510,000 less the capitalized interest. So the proceeds that the town will have will be 29,943,770. I hope I said 29 million. That is what we're counting on basically, for the, the project total. The COP proceeds, we're looking at 33,500,000. Interest earnings, that's just, we still have a standard smaller interest earning. That's just some change that's been coming in there from the Colorado Trust split. The St. Louis Landing, the Colorado Trust interest, I based that on a 4% estimate. So I'm estimating for next year that at 4%, parking those proceeds for St. Louis Landing will be a $1,120,000 earnings of interest. The Colorado Trust for the Public Works, we're not going to be getting the COPs probably till around April. So we did it on 3/4 of the year. So anticipated interest earnings on that 33 million will be $884,400. Now the capitalized bond interest, that is what was taken out of that 33 million. That's held separately. This is the capitalized interest. We'll be paying this. This is going to be down. Let's go down to expenses and I'll show you where that comes out. Let's see. We have expenditures are the cost of issuance for the COP, 500,000. The cost of issuance for the bond, $760,930. That again is paid out of the bond proceeds. The lease principal that we're anticipating for the COP for the Public Works, this is an annual lease principal. This is the 1,486,000. Now, just to be clear, there can be years if we choose to only do an interest-only lease principal. That's what the note over to the side. This was prorated for the year because we don't get the funds until probably around April. So, we can reduce payments annual if we need to. If we get into a position where we think we need to make a lesser payment that year, we can do interest only. But the lease principal, that's interest and part of the principal combined. Then here's the funds and capitalized interest. This is a debt service payment. That's 40,4112. This debt service payment is paid for from the funds and the capitalized interest. So that 3 million up above that's sitting by itself in capitalized interest will be used to pay this bond payment in the first year. Moving forward, we'll be using interest earned and to offset this debt service payment. Again, this debt service payment, I believe, is I think we can make negotiations like the COPs to where maybe we have a interest only and then bond, you know, I'm still learning about that part. But so again, we wind up using a lot of the bond proceeds to continue to pay the capitalized interest. There's one more transfer that we make out of the bond proceeds. The transfer to the debt service fund, there's a $2,679,840 transfer. And this is the debt service fund deposit. And that is going to be your debt service reserve. While the project is going on, and then this is a backup reserve that will carry forward year after year to help offset future expenditures if necessary. So we're already going to fund a committed reserve with that 2 million. The transfer to the capital asset, these transfers are based again on the percent of the project we hope to have completed by 2026. So for the public works, we were anticipating having a 35% completion. So out of the debt service, I'm planning on pulling 11,550,000, which goes up to capital asset, which is where the project will be carried. And then the transfer to the housing authority, because we're anticipating a 60% completion for 2026. I'll be transferring 16,697,460 down to the Fraser Housing Authority, because that's where we'll be tracking the project in Fraser Housing Authority.
And the 60% is a call across all three buildings on average. Building C is anticipated to be completed November of next year. Building E in January of 2027, and then building D in June or July of 2027.
Yeah, but I do anticipate that the way I've seen Big Valley building before, each building will have you know, something will be getting started on the next one. They'll have the framing crew in on the first building, and then when those guys get done, they move to the next, and then on busy little bees over there. So even though we complete just one, the other two will be well on their a good start.
So can we stage this such that we're not incurring such a large one-time payment? The bond, you can't really do it that way, but COP you can, right? You can break it into maybe three equal payments in subsequent
That's what-
years and not take on all that debt immediately and then hold on to that cash that potentially we'll be losing even more money on.
Yep. If you go to page 2, we're already doing that for next year.
We've been planning.
So page 2, line item 10-39-940. You'll see $100,000 coming in, $100,000 coming in from the water fund. And then right below that, you have that $150,000 number. That's a transfer coming in from the wastewater fund. And that's to pay the costs for the portion of the COP that we're going to be paying. So the plan is, you know, depending on what the board ends up doing with COPs, right, this shows that they're paying, that we're going to issue the full 33.5 million that constructs the road and all the public works facilities and paves the parking lot, and you're all done. approach that we've been talking about is looking at what a phase approval could look like, and we'll present those options when we go through that process. So
Okay.
we could end up doing the road and the primary facility and maybe doing some of the outlining buildings later. We could just end up doing the facility and then the road later and then some of the outlining facilities. There's some flexibility here, and there's also the ability to refinance the COPs and increase the amount that we get for that to pay for those in the future. So we can start out kind of, and we'll present those options, but we can start out pretty conservatively, especially until we see that St. Louis Landing is leased up and operating and bringing in the revenues to cover the mortgage, and that project's successful. And then we could look at maybe an amendment or just budgeting for these different projects to come in as our cash allows. So you'll have options, and we'll talk through all those options once we move forward with COPs.
Yeah, it just makes me a little nervous to take on $70 million worth of debt
Yeah.
next year.
And if you take on the full COP payment and you do divide it 3 ways between the water fund, the wastewater fund, and the general fund, it's about $745,000 to the general fund, $745 to the water fund, and $745 to the wastewater fund. If we scale it back a little bit and we don't do the full project, and let's just say we just do the primary building, we'll finalize what those costs are. But that could be a smaller payment. It's like $450,000 to each fund instead of $750,000 to each fund.
What are the implications of staging it? Are we still working out of this building then, or are we splitting our staff?
Well, so we'll be able to work out of this.
Yeah.
If we build the primary building at the Public Works facility, it's designed that will grow into this full facility, right? But if we build the primary facility, where maybe we had gardening crews and some other storage areas for utilities, they could use maybe some of those bays that are available that are based on a 100-year filling plan that this is going to satisfy our requirements for 100 years. So they can utilize that full primary building until we build the rest of it. The only downfall to waiting to build the rest of the buildings is it's going to be more expensive when you go to construct those versus having a full facility paid off in 30 years.
Well, and then there's operating in 2 locations and.
Well, once they move into that facility, this will be demoed. Is the plan. We'll bring that to the board, but that's the plan, is to demo this.
So the money that comes in from the water and the wastewater fund, is that monies that are supported by municipalities other than Fraser? So
Nope, that's just for Fraser.
that's just Fraser money.
Right, out of town service agreement as well. And we'll collect revenues on that. But no, I mean, you have the ability to utilize these enterprise funds for certain things. And you're gonna have the water department and their storage at the public works facility. You're gonna have the wastewater storage and those people, and you're also gonna have the streets guys. So if you do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, that can make the most sense. Maybe that's not how it ends up breaking out as far as what makes the most sense per fund, because we have a healthy wastewater fund, but the water fund, maybe we need to look at a lower allocation there.
Well, and looking at staffing levels and that kind of stuff, it's not equally split.
Right.
So.
Right.
I think we'd be hitting our enterprise funds pretty hard and that makes our enterprise funds actually supporting our streets and kind of.
Yep. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah,
1/3,
yeah.
1/3, 1/3.
And I'm thinking it through out loud, sorry.
Yeah.
So who pays for the public works up on the hill that are outside the city limits, like Winter Park?
Up on the hill, down.
Like Winter Park Ranch,
Yeah,
like
Winter Park Ranch.
that's all
both sides.
county.
Who?
It's all county.
So the county does all the plowing and they
Mhm.
pay for all that? Okay.
Behind Safeway area?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's all county. We have county, I live right there, and they come through with the county plow trucks and they just pave the road, which is nice, but that was all county funds.
Okay. We've hit 5:30. Do you have any more questions before we take a break?
Yeah, any other questions? Obviously feel free to take a look at this, sleep with it if you like. And send us any questions that you have, and we'll send the answers out to everybody so that everybody's got the Q&A.
Yeah, if we could just create like another column to compare end of the year to budget for this year, so we can kind of see where we went over, you know, and why.
Mhm.
Just for planning for next year.
Got it. Can do that. It's easy. All right. Thank you.